in the world of academics too, I mean, like when you're in university, it's like, oh, sorry, I got a midterm next week. Like I can't go out, or I got to study today, or I have this project due. But for us,
it's not relatable to most people. So they wouldn't understand, hey, I got to watch 4 hours worth of YouTube videos on how to run Facebook ads.
Hey, and welcome to Start Yours, a podcast from Oberlo about what it's like to start a business. My name is David, and in this episode, we talk with Rodney Zakariuk and Corey Jostak. Rodney and Corey are a pair of friends from Vancouver who run a fantasy game store together. They had a funny introduction to e-commerce and to dropshipping. Basically, they kind of stumbled across it by accident while splitting a cab with a stranger on the way to the airport, and it wasn't long before they were obsessed, and that's where we're gonna pick things up in this episode. Rodney and Corey falling down the e-commerce rabbit hole, but keeping it a secret from their family and friends. Now, if you're an entrepreneur or if you've thought about launching your own business, then maybe this sounds somewhat familiar. You think you're onto something big, but you're not exactly dying to tell people about it because, well, they might think you're kind of crazy. Turns out Rodney and Corey weren't crazy. They've morphed this obsession into a booming e-commerce store, and they tell us all about how they did it. We hope you enjoy the podcast. If you do, please consider subscribing. Oh, and if you want to keep track of who's who here, Rodney is going to be the first person to answer a question. All right, here are Rodney and Corey. You guys have talked about how there was this sense among your family and your friends that trying to start your own business was kind of an unusual concept, and like maybe even a little bit more than unusual, like to the point that people were thinking it might be a little bit on the risky or dumb side. What were you feeling in these days before you launched the store, or maybe shortly after you launched your business, and kind of this perception that what you were doing was kind of radical?
I feel like we've kind of experienced that our whole lives because we've been both pretty out there kind of people with our ideas. We have a big vision, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
So we always come up with crazy business ideas or crazy ways to make money, or just
big ideas in general. Like, you know, kind of moving from that first point of everyone goes on vacation for 2 weeks a year to an all-inclusive in Mexico, and they spend their 2 weeks off there. And for us, we were like, wow, we want to go somewhere else, and Costa Rica. Why don't we go try a different thing? And so from that point on, I think our world opened up, because you met a guy that got into drop shipping. I had been at home by that point, and then I met a friend who explained it to me briefly, and then kind of connected after that, and we're like, we got to try this together.
I actually shared a cab with a guy in Costa Rica on the way to the airport, and he started to explain the drop shipping business model to me, and I started just writing down notes on my phone, and this was probably 2 or 3 years ago now, and I researched it a bunch when I got home, and then after that, I guess life kind of got in the way, and I left it on the back burner, but Corey started talking to me about it again, and then we started to try it.
And I guess some test stores from there.
And then just to go back to your question, how did we deal with the kind of
The haters.
That was when we...
That was one of the most difficult things that we kind of encountered at the beginning, just because where we're from, like, this is not a traditional job at all, or like a business model that people are even aware of. So to kind of combat that, it was difficult at first because we didn't really want to tell people what we were doing, just because we were scared of the backlash, and we didn't want to have that kind of negative social stigma towards us.
A lot of people, they like to see you do well, but not better than them at the same time. So, for us to kind of push forward with what we were doing, we didn't want to have to deal with the mental and social aspect of that. So for us, it was easier to keep quiet. And I guess when we first started, like, we ended up going to Asia for 4 or 5 months. But when we were testing a bunch of stores out, we kind of had an excuse of, we don't want to go out and spend money. So we would stay at home and work on this kind of behind the scenes and practice learning how to, use Shopify and Oberlo and find products. But then
build Instagrams.
Yeah, build Instagrams. And then we ended up taking off for those months, and then, didn't really do a whole lot.
We were trying to do like a YouTube travel vlog.
Yeah.
Okay. But
an early hustle.
Yeah.
We quickly realized that video editing while we were moving that frequently was not possible. So
we just kind of stuck around with the Instagrams and doing research. And then when we got home, ended up deciding, okay, now is for real. Like, let's do this for real. And that's when things did start getting busy. And that's when we had to kind of come up with excuses for why we weren't able to make it out or come hang out day in and day out in friends' basements or going out to the bar or, going to these events. And
which we still tried to make them as much as we could, but at the same time, it was just one of those things where it's like we needed to be fully in this and fully dedicated to it, and to explain it to people that we're busy, like from the time that we wake up to the time that we go to bed, is kind of difficult for people to comprehend when it's not a traditional job or education that you're going
because
into.
it was all self-taught. I mean, there's courses out there you can buy, but at the time we didn't want to spend the money on those, and we bootstrapped the entire thing. So we would scour YouTube for like any bits and pieces of information we could get. We'd be watching 3-hour videos to pull out a couple minutes of information, and then going through those multiple times, reading blog post after blog post, reading Reddit forums, any type of information we could get. And it's like, yeah, you're busy, and people understand, okay, yeah, when you're working, you're busy, but they think you're off at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., you're the rest of your evening, what are you doing with? But we couldn't really explain to people, it's not that, we have a salaried position anymore, let alone that no one knew we were even working on this. So it was kind of just us saying like, oh, sorry, we can't make it, but not really having an excuse or trying to deflect the questions for the whole time.
Right.
You didn't want to say you had some stuff to read on Reddit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a hard way to explain that you're busy.
Because in the world of academics too, I mean, like when you're in university, it's like, oh, sorry, I got a midterm next week, like I can't go out, or I got to study today, or I have this project due. But for us, it's
not relatable to most people, so they wouldn't understand. Hey, I got to watch 4 hours worth of YouTube videos on how to run Facebook ads. It's just, it's kind of a weird way to explain.
Or like figure out this one piece of like code that's screwing up with our website, and going anywhere and everywhere you can on the internet to try and figure out how to do it yourself. Because I mean, we like to solve problems, and being a drop shipper or entrepreneur is all about literally just solving problems, right?
Yeah.
That's all you got to be able to do. It's
a living puzzle that's always expanding and evolving. So you have to be continually kind of working with that and kind of addicted to solving that problem.
So I guess the addiction kind of overcame for us, and we were like, you know what, this is exactly what we want to be doing. Like if there is something to get addicted to, it's to learn how to work for yourself and critically think for yourself and
build yourself as an asset.
Build yourself as the asset is kind of our philosophy.
I think it's interesting to talk about it in terms of addiction, and that's something that sort of language or that sort of idea is something that we've heard before, that people just get hooked on it, that there's something real sticky about this idea that, I could build this thing myself and then launch these ads myself. What for you guys, what were the addictive aspects where it was, you were doing all this work that might have sounded really unglamorous, but for you it was, you couldn't get enough of it?
So to kind of start off, I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but it worked for us. We actually bought Apple Watches just to get the Shopify ping to it. So it was kind of like a dopamine rush that we were instantly getting. So it made the 14 to 15 hour days when you're just working on your computer all day a little bit more worthwhile, or kind of it would reinforce what you're doing it for, and that it's actually working. So for us at the beginning, that really helped. But for now, we've completely shut off our notifications, and we started to realize that hit us in a more emotional way, and we are reacting too emotionally. So now we've just kind of analyzed the data and go off of that. But at the beginning, that was kind of the addiction, I guess. Getting that Shopify ping.
That and just browsing AliExpress is pretty fun at the same time. You never know what you're going to come across.
There's no end to it.
There's no end to AliExpress. So being able to do that and then saying, oh, we could add this, we could add that, and then trying to go through the process of figuring out how to get the product and whether it's going to show up on time, what does it come in, what's the quality assurance on this,
it's just the foresight of building a business and building a machine that would work for you, and it was almost like your baby, your child, right? So
and constantly creating new content and coming up with ideas to expand the store. We're passionate about building business and solving those problems. We're not necessarily passionate about, the things that we sell, because for us, the emotional aspect is way too strong to overcome when you get too involved like that. We know people who refuse to try a new store or a new item because they're so emotionally attached to what they're selling. And we see that as a problem, right? You see a lot of people that get into that because of addiction and whatever your vice is, right? But for us, it's the process of creating something that works for us on the side when we're sleeping.
Yeah, and just the information involved with creating it to a point where like you're continually adapting with the information that's needed to build this into something.
We're learners, we're not studiers, right? Like I hated studying in university. I mean, most people do, because a lot of the stuff you learn is either outdated or not really relevant to 2019 or 2020 or the future. And for us, it's like, oh, how much more information and new software can we come across? Like we are constantly browsing the internet for new ideas, new software, new ways to implement things. And that's where it really comes in. And that's where we really have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that definitely played a huge factor too. Just it was so instant. It was so instantaneous. Like all the information that was needed was, it was live almost, right? You're scouring the internet for this information, and it's stuff that's like with technology on a day-to-day, it changes, right? So stuff that was working for us, say like a week ago or a month ago or 2 months ago, it could not be relevant today. So it's just continually having to expand your knowledge and kind of increase your problem-solving skills to get to the point where you can create this masterful puzzle.
Yeah, and that builds us up as the asset, like we said, right? Like that's our whole philosophy. Like what can we provide for ourselves? Because we're the ones running it, right? Like we don't have outside input. We have a mentor at home that kind of helps us with the overall business side of things, but he's in his 60s now. Like he's not, attuned to the internet like we are. So it's good to get his perspective on things. But for us, it's like, okay, it's up to us to learn this. No one's going to teach us.
Yeah.
There's no e-commerce course at university that's really relevant to doing the higher level things that we're at now. So, you got to just come up and think for yourself.
We talked with somebody recently who he pulled the trigger on dropping out of school and going all in on e-commerce when he was taking a marketing class from some, somebody with a PhD or some doctor.
Yeah,
he was just sitting there thinking, man, this lady has never run a Facebook campaign.
No,
there's no.
It was crazy. I was actually in the same position. So I was in marketing at university as well, and I dropped out just because I had the same kind of epiphany where this lady didn't have any clue what she was talking about, and I'm like, this lady doesn't even know what Snapchat is, what Instagram is, or like she barely knows what Facebook is, let alone running Facebook advertisements. So I got to that point where I was paying thousands of dollars, and I'm like, why am I paying this stuff when I can learn the more efficient information from a kid on YouTube that's like 20 years old and learn it in 20 minutes to an hour versus a full semester.
Rodney had to run like a search engine optimization class or like a project, and didn't you end up getting like last in the course?
Yeah, we had this, what's it called, simulation. We had this simulation in our marketing class running Facebook advertisements and Google or email campaigns. And I actually came I think it was last or second last in the class. And I started to realize, I'm like, this stuff is so irrelevant, because I thought I was running good campaigns at the time. But it was solely based off of this program that you're forced to pay for, and just based off no real data.
Yeah, and now we're ranking #1 for our domain name. Like we've taken down the competition that's similar, or had like a very, very similar domain name and have been around for a while. So we're like, look at us now, right? Like it motivates you to see like, okay, I was in this position at one point, and like I'm being judged by someone that's not even doing what I'm doing. Like who gives them the authority to say, yeah, you're doing well or you're not doing well, right? Like if you're making money and making it happen and working for yourself, like that's the ultimate win.
Especially when it's reflective in your grades, or I guess if you're pursuing higher education, like it applies to getting like a master's degree or something as well, which is it's kind of annoying to deal with, right?
Yeah, there was a guy, Ryan, who's in an earlier episode of the podcast, and he was saying that he had a high school teacher who said, if you don't go to college, then you're going to end up working at a McDonald's. And so now Ryan's doing like all this cool digital nomad stuff. He's running, he's sold stores, running new stores, and so he said his dream is to franchise a McDonald's and invite the teacher over.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we go on Reddit all the time, and of course we like to browse just the random subreddits and the homepage and whatnot. But we're seeing people that have master's degrees in America who are working at Walmart or fast food, and it's like you've been sold this. I don't know, I guess lie your entire life that education's the answer. And education is the answer, but it doesn't mean you have to pay $250,000 to attain that, or tens of thousands of dollars in Canada to attain that.
The system's kind of flawed, because people get that mindset of education is the answer, and you'll get your degree and you'll be set and ready to go. and they kind of turn off their minds after they attain that pedigree.
Yeah.
But it's more so continual education that will bring you success.
And then there's been wage stagnation over like the last 30, 40 years. Like a friend of ours back home is working in a position where I started this job like 5 years ago in the summer as a student, and I was making, like $27 an hour to start. And then he got the job this summer, and his wage to start was like $23 or $24.
Okay, it's not going in the right direction.
Not going in the right direction. Yeah. And, the cost of living is increasing.
Yeah,
and
your purchasing power is decreasing.
Your purchasing power is decreasing. The cost of living is like skyrocketing, and in Vancouver in general is kind of a phenomenon in Canada being like way, way, way overpriced. Toronto as well is, artificially priced because of a lot of the foreign investment. And so got to the point for us of like, if we're making a salary of this much money, is that really going to be sustainable for us? Like, are we even going to be able to buy a house here? Are you going to be able to get a mortgage?
Yeah, we were looking at, is this going to be worthwhile for us in the long run, especially when we're working in an industry where we have the ability to move or work remotely, right?
Yeah.
So we wanted to take advantage of that, and that's kind of, where we're at now, just searching for places to go where we can have the lifestyle that we want to enjoy, with just Wi-Fi and the accessibility of the internet where we can work.
That's all you require.
That's your office.
That's our office.
Yeah.
So you guys did something cool to kind of hone in on what sort of products you wanted to sell, and that's to using social media as I don't know if market research is the right term, but use social media to kind of figure out what were the niches with the most interest, and what are some things that collect data to see what are some things that you might be able to sell. So a lot of the time we talk about how you find a product, then you launch a store, and then you set up your social accounts, and then you race forward. You guys went from the social accounts to the products, and then you race forward. So it's somewhat the other direction. Talk a bit about how you use social media to launch your store, as opposed to this normal route where people might set up the social media only after things are up and running.
Right, yeah. So we just kind of wanted to reverse engineer the process, and we saw that social media was a huge driving factor to kind of build an organic engine for a lot of these stores. So we kind of started to build these social media accounts on Instagram to see if there was going to be audience engagement, if people were interested in it to begin with. And we wanted to just kind of test that to see if it was worthwhile before we put all of our effort into that specific niche.
Yeah.
And it kind of gave us the option to test a bunch of them to see what was the highest engaging, which kind of ones we could build a community around.
We've seen people blow thousands of dollars on Facebook ads in like a day or a few days trying to test products. And, as kids who didn't have a lot of disposable income at the time, it's like, okay, well, we have to bootstrap this somehow. And what's the best way to do that? It's to, go out and do something that's free, obviously, right? And so with Instagram, you can create as many accounts as you can get your hands on. And then from there, it's up to you. Yeah, you got to put your time in and find posts that you can post on the account and then engage with people and grow it. But that's free. It's just your time, right?
Yeah.
And so for us, it was more valuable to do that because you're building an audience, and then, maybe once you hit 1,000 followers, you kind of get that traction point of like, hey, this is kind of taken off. So once we hit that and ended up seeing that Instagram was kind of the way to go, we already had an audience built for when our store was launched. And from there, we decided to do a giveaway because we had 8,000, 7,000 followers at that point.
It also, just to touch on just growing the Instagram first, it gives you better insight into your customers and then your business as a whole, because you get to engage with your community and kind of see what they're after or what they'd be interested in to begin with.
Right.
So you have a better...
The language they speak and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, so... I think that's very useful in creating a successful business.
And then it helps you also determine your competitors, right? Otherwise you're just going to be browsing for hours on end trying to find out who the competitors are in the space. But if you're creating an Instagram account, well, you're going to see, they used to have the activity page or the activity tab where you could see who liked whose photo, commented on that. So if you see someone that sounds like a business, we would go in and we'd check them out and see okay, what are they doing right? What are they not doing well on here? Is their Instagram following fake? Because we see people with over 100,000 subscribers or followers on Instagram. We go in and check their engagement rates, and you're getting 200 likes on a photo or one comment.
Doesn't quite add up.
Doesn't quite add up. So okay, our whole focus is organic is the driver of everything. We've got an email subscriber base now of 60,000 plus the 34,000 on Instagram of real people, right? Whereas if you had bought 100,000 followers as bots, you're not getting any information out of that.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's actually detrimental to your account just because now you're getting lower engagement rates on your photos.
Yeah.
So with the algorithm, you're not going to be getting pushed to that higher tier of viewership.
Yeah.
Right? So
By having those like 7,000 or 8,000 followers by the time Black Friday rolled around, we didn't have to create any campaigns that we put money into, right? We just brainstormed like a really cool idea for how we would promote a product, and then did a giveaway and, gained entries through that, and a lot of traffic through that, and word of mouth entries. And then, people decided like, hey, yeah, these guys look legit. Like, we'll buy from them, and like, we want to win the prize. So,
yeah, definitely.
So it already had the organic base for us where we didn't have to put money into it. And then anything we did make from there, we reinvested back into marketing.
I love a good giveaway. That's a hack that
Yeah.
everyone can use. We've heard that a million times.
Yeah.
Definitely. You got to differentiate yourself, and you kind of got to incite, I guess, buzz around
Yeah.
your store, right?
Yeah. So Rodney, you mentioned that you kind of have to divorce yourself a little bit from the products that you're selling to not get too get too tied up. That's interesting in the context of the different Instagram accounts that you all launched at the get-go. So I think, tell me if I'm missing anything here, but there were accounts for basketball, jewelry, fake house plants, tech gadgets, holiday accessories, and then there was also one for fantasy gaming.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with these half dozen things? Were these things you were interested in, or are these things that you heard other people talking about? What was the logic here?
No, so there's just there's buzz around them that we were researching, and just from going through Instagram and going through other advertisements on Instagram that we saw from other drop shippers, we were just kind of brainstorming at our place, thinking of what kind of stuff would people be interested in, and what kind of niches are people very involved in, right? So with basketball, like that's a niche that people are very kind of passionate about, right? So we were looking into that, and we were kind of going off of the increasing trends within the NBA and how basketball was continually growing exponentially each year. And then from there, the other products.
Like houseplants and tech gadgets. I mean, tech gadgets are always going to be around.
Right.
Of course, they pose problems in terms of electronics working properly when you're trying to drop ship from AliExpress, or
Which we never really kind of considered.
I don't even know if you can like buy battery packs for charging stuff from there now. Like we looked into those.
I don't think you can
They
ship
didn't
them.
offer e-packet shipping, and like some of them just seem like very, I don't know, tough to do. But like then there's things like keyboards and mouses and stuff that, more often than not, they're probably going to work, but you got to test them out yourself. House plants, I mean, like my mom likes to have stuff around the house all the time, and
okay.
that like that demographic alone, right? The kind of like I guess they're Gen X or whatever generation they are. Like they'll spend money on home decor like crazy. Like, and then there's retail stores around where we live at home, and they like plants are like $50, $100.
We were realizing how much they were charging for these things and how much we could get them for on AliExpress, and it was just like the arbitrage opportunity was insane.
Of like selling the accessories for them, right? Like watering things or I guess pots and whatever else, hanging baskets, like all this stuff is out there. And the plants are continual. Like they always want more. They always want to redo their garden, or they want to change things, or they get tired of, exactly.
So between all these different niches that you guys were exploring, was there one you were hoping was going to end up being your winner? Were you have your fingers crossed for basketball? Or?
I mean, we're big fans of basketball, for sure, but we just didn't see it as being like the most penetrable niche to get into.
And so what were you looking at? So like this is interesting that you kind of looked at what happened to your account and determined, okay, this probably isn't going to be for us. What were the signals that you were seeing there?
I mean,
just engagement and like how quickly the following was growing, and if people were kind of really
tagging friends or saving posts or sending posts to each other.
Yeah, we were looking at the analytics and seeing what the engagement was like, and if it was high quality engagement, right? Because we wanted to build something that was going to be long lasting versus just kind of a cheap, quick, like a fidget spinner where it'd be just a cheap, quick thing you make your money off of, and then it kind of dies off after that. We wanted to build something that was sustainable, so we had to make sure that our community was going to be rock solid. So that's kind of what we went off of.
Yeah, went off of that, and I mean, basketball's got a pretty rock solid community for sure, but it's very like segregated, or people are diehard fans of this team or these players, and then there's also a big amount of accounts out there that are dedicated to basketball already, like meme pages, or I guess other accounts like that, or people that post just random videos. So you're competing with those, and not to say you can't compete with them, but
for us to begin with, it was just, there was a lot more friction down that avenue.
Yeah, and because we had multiple avenues to look into, we could quickly see like, hey, look, these other ones are growing quite quick in comparison. Why are we wasting our time? Like, let's get rid of this one. We've narrowed it down, and then ultimately, got to where we were with the fantasy niche.
Could you define what the fantasy niche is? Because the first time I read this, I thought, oh, fantasy sports. They have a fantasy sports website, but that's not it. So what is broadly speaking, what is the fantasy genre?
Kind of like medieval.
Like role-playing, RPG role-playing,
immersive fantasy worlds kind of thing.
Immersive fantasy worlds, like stories, people that are more involved in like the medieval style.
Think like Lord of the Rings.
Game of Thrones, kind of all that, Harry Potter.
That kind of niche, that kind of subset.
Cool. And what was your experience with this heading into it?
Just fans of general kind of fantasy, like movies or like video games when we were younger, like playing RuneScape or World of Warcraft when we were younger, kind of sparked that. But when we grew up, we kind of fell out of that. But we knew that there was a strong subset of people that were super, super passionate about it. And it's one of those niches that people that are invested in it are super, super invested into it. So we kind of went with that.
And so this idea of the audience being super invested, I think this is more important than a lot of people realize, that you can have like a cool product, but if the target group for that product is kind of indifferent to it, then you're going to have a lot of, use the word friction. I think it's a good word for it. It's going to be kind of swimming upstream. Whereas if you have a good product and then a target audience that is really dorky about it, or that has all the gear, or they're just kind of like, they live this stuff. I guess that was part of the equation, right?
Absolutely. I think it's a lot easier to kind of move people down the conversion funnel when they are invested in something like their hobby, right? People are more likely to spend money on their hobbies versus anything else, right? That's something that brings joy to them. That's something that it kind of plays on their emotions because it's something that they get excited for. It's one of those things that when you're passionate about something, you don't really have an issue with spending money on it, right? Like if you went to a guy that loves fishing, he has no problem buying a $300 fishing rod, whereas he might have trouble, or he might find friction with purchasing like an expensive dinner, right? So there's two different avenues where he can spend his money, and one's a lot easier for him to spend his money on.
This is a quick 30-second break to tell you about Oberlo 101, the ultimate course for starting and scaling your online business. For Oberlo 101, we worked with six-figure dropshippers to show you how to build a successful online business step by step. Oberlo 101 is more than 8 hours long. There are 23 different lessons, and there are all sorts of downloads that you'll get along the way. I promise you it's hardcore, and if you use the promo code STARTYOURS at checkout, you'll get 40% off. So go to oberlo.com/course and use the code STARTYOURS, all one word, to get 40% off. So after you guys had the niche figured out and you knew you wanted to do this fantasy thing that had this fervent fan base, you populated your store with a bunch of products that were low cost and kind of a little bit easier to move. So you were able to kind of see some immediate sales, immediate returns, and you knew you had a proof of concept. Okay, this works. And then over time, you evolved the kind of low cost, high volume equation into products that cost a little bit more. Maybe they're a little bit more complicated to sell, but strategically it was a good decision for you guys. Talk about that evolution going from just trying to push as many smaller sales as you could, getting into things that each item costs a bit more.
Yeah, this is a bit of a funny story how it all kind of played out, because honestly, anything that could go wrong for us went wrong. With Black Friday, we started with a giveaway campaign, and, things kind of blossomed from there. And, we went from like 3,000 in November in revenue to like 60 or 70,000 in December, and then 100 in January.
And this would have been like 2018, 2019?
Yeah, 2018,
okay.
2019. Cool. And then Black Friday, or after Black Friday, Christmas, the New Year, great. January rolls around, and then comes Chinese New Year. And we've never been affected by Chinese New Year in our life. And everything came crashing down.
It's not top of mind?
Not top of mind.
No.
Like, we get messaged by our supplier saying like, hey, going to be away for like the next 3 to 4 weeks. No, nothing's going to be shipped, not taking orders. And we're just like, oh my God, like what do we do?
Pure panic mode.
Pure panic mode.
Because how many sales were you sitting on at this point?
We were doing around 1,000 orders a day at this time. So it was.
We hit our first like $15,000 day in revenue in January, like right before Chinese New Year, and we didn't know what to do. So out of desperation, when we got home from Hawaii at the end of January, beginning of February, my parents ended up going to Mexico. So Rodney came to my parents' house. I went back to my parents' house. We lived there for like a week and worked from like 10 a.m. to 4 a.m. every day, restructuring our entire website, going with a pro template that we really thought would be cool for our store.
Doing pricing structures.
Redoing the entire pricing structure.
Thinking of new promotions, thinking of new ways to kind of
and then
just
from there,
restructure the business.
We were also under audit from American Express with our credit card. That got locked out. Our Facebook ads account had been banned for like the third or fourth time by that point, and PayPal had frozen our account. So we were in like fight or flight mode at this point. And we were like, okay, we can do the customer service for all these people that are waiting for their orders. Like, we'll just have to get through that. That's, we don't have a choice at this point. And what would be more important to us is, keep them as potential returning customers by giving good customer support, or do we just like cancel the store? And we're like, no, we can still do this. We know it works. So then we were like, why are we not moving to like higher ticket items as well?
Because we were going through at the time like pages and pages each day of customer service emails because we were doing the lower ticket items. And we started to see kind of the inefficiencies in our business with that, because it worked at the beginning because we were able to capture all of these emails and customer data and information, which was super useful.
Yeah, set us up for the rest of this year.
It's essentially digital gold right now, right? So we got to the point where we're like, we've established our customer base and we've kind of collected this huge organic following. And now we need to kind of move into stuff that is going to be less work on our end and ultimately more profitable with the higher ticket items.
Yeah, and then kind of from there it just stemmed out like, why are we not going into other types of accessories that we think these people would like? Because we were kind of essentially operating like a one product store. I mean, we had a few products, but really nothing crazy.
One main product.
And then we're like, you know what? No, like there's so much other stuff we can do here. So let's get into high ticket, but then higher ticket, but let's also kind of expand horizontally at the same time.
Yeah, and just kind of create a full immersive experience on our site versus just come here once, buy a product, and then leave. So we wanted people to stick around, essentially.
Do you have any sense that the original strategy wasn't the right one, like that you should have been doing high ticket all along, or was this process of getting the emails, getting the data, getting the momentum, like was that super valuable?
I think that was super valuable.
Yeah, in hindsight, like definitely could have been done differently to like focus on the higher ticket items for sure, but because we didn't launch any campaign until like November 24th or 25th of last year, whatever, like the couple days before Black Friday weekend was. So we were really late to the game and it was a scramble for us, and we were just like, we just got to get something going to see if there's like, legitimate traction.
There's something here,
And so our kind of main goal was like, sure, if we make sales and generate revenue, that's awesome. And that's a goal for sure. But more importantly, we have the opportunity to collect emails and get people to go to our Instagram and follow us there and kind of build the community side of things, because we knew if this worked now, then we have the entire year to prepare for next Black Friday and the holiday season. And like we have all of that time to figure out, the inefficiencies in our business, kind of think bigger picture, longer term of how we want to approach this and turn it into a sustainable business.
And so this idea of capturing emails and getting followers on Instagram, I think it's great and everybody should be doing that. But I'm sympathetic if there's anybody listening to this and they're thinking like, there's no money there. Like nobody's paying me to follow me on Instagram. I'm not getting money. Like, what could you tell somebody who's thinking that, to reassure them that this is maybe a slow play, but like,
right. So I think this comes back to our philosophy of delayed gratification versus instant gratification. Right. So you're not going to see an instant return from kind of people following you on Instagram or people subscribing to your email list, but ultimately the back end is where you're going to make your money with your returning customers. And it's kind of an organic engine that you can continually utilize to churn advertisements to people for essentially like free.
You're just paying for the email subscription or entirely free on Instagram, right? Like,
right.
we like to post new products on Instagram, and behind the content that we post in like a carousel format or on our stories, and then taking polls and
gathering customer information, customer ideas on the aesthetics that they're looking for in our products, which is huge market research opportunities for us as well.
Yeah, we want to be integrated entirely within like their world, because you can only do so much YouTube and blog research or Reddit research, but like to get direct feedback is...
It's like being on the ground level.
Yeah, being on the ground level, seeing it for yourself, and then, making informed decisions from there, and kind of deciding, looking back at the data we've collected over the past year, and kind of seeing like, okay, how does this information line up with what we've achieved already, and is there anything here that we think we could push into like more of a custom piece, and then get that out there.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to as well with capturing the email subscribers and the Instagram too. You utilize Facebook and Instagram advertising, or we say Google PPC, and you get those. You have to pay for each customer that you're acquiring, right? But once you pay for those people, if you can retain them, you can advertise to them essentially for the rest of their life.
Yeah, the lifetime value of the customer could be thousands of dollars before you know it, right? Like we've had people spend over $500 on our store now, like multiple people, right?
Multiple times.
Like they're returning customers over and over again whenever we release like new items that they're super excited on. And then...
So we've already paid to acquire that customer, so now we have them for free, right?
Yeah.
And within that too, running email campaigns is so targeted, because like for sure these people are interested if they're staying on there. We like to offer discounts within our email campaign that you only get by signing up for it, right? So it kind of adds that extra layer of... I guess like the funnel for people. It's like, okay, they're already super targeted. They want to be on here. What can we do to entice them to buy? And now we have a bigger budget essentially for advertising, if you will, because we're not trying to acquire them anymore. So we can afford to give them a discount that's a little bit heavier than what we would normally promote for.
And as well as just with the email campaigns, providing value within them is huge for retaining your customer base and not having them unsubscribe and actually having them engage with your products, right?
What does that look like in the fantasy space? Like what's adding value?
So right now we work with a blog writer, and he is producing 4 blogs for us now?
2 blogs, but we get like 3 to 4 posts a week, ranging from like 1,000 to 5,000 words.
Okay.
And then a podcast that we've partnered with as well.
Okay.
And he's growing like crazy, so...
So we're just kind of engaging that incorporating that within our email campaigns.
We put that in the email campaign each week. We do a little excerpt from the blog posts.
Okay, cool.
Click here to read more. Podcast, like here's the title of it. Here's like a quick description of it. Click here to listen to it. We add things like obviously new products in there, do a little quick caption in the beginning about, here's what this week's email campaign is all about, or here's what you can expect in the coming weeks, stay subscribed to us and you'll see what's going to happen. We like to generate excitement and kind of like, build the hype around stuff just because, that's what they want.
Right.
So.
Yeah, they want the full experience. Also, just to match with that as well, we've created a persona that is kind of like the figurehead of our company, and he's as well just like a fantasy character that we've created. So it's a more intimate thing with the emails. So it's like it's coming from...
Are they sent from him?
They're sent from him.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We get addressed as him when emails come back or on our Instagram. But that's, people resonate more with someone that's like actual figurehead as opposed to like just the business.
Right.
So we think it's more, personalized. Yeah.
Cool.
Intimate, yeah.
So you'll have emails that you send out that don't have products, don't have discounts, don't have any, like you're not pushing anything, it's just this.
No, we combine it all together.
Okay.
So each week it's like, the quick excerpt from the persona that we've created, him kind of just explaining new items that we've acquired, essentially, how we got them, making up a backstory about it, and then we'll post those items below.
Like a fantasy story.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. We create a story with everything. All of our products have a backstory.
Okay.
Like we want it to be as immersive as possible, right? Like, come here. We want you to read about it. We want you to get excited about
Stay on
these
the
things.
site.
Stay on the site. And then
dork out with us.
Exactly. And then,
absolutely.
because we, at the time when we partnered with the blog writer and the podcast guy, we didn't have the money to be like, hey, we can sponsor you or pay for you to write for us or be on your podcast.
Or hire someone full time.
Or hire someone full time. So we just kind of were like, look, we have all this exposure on our email campaigns and we get this much site traffic. or what we've had. This is what we've had in site traffic over the last few months.
Right.
Here's our Instagram as well. Like, you guys already follow us on there.
As well as just experience growing Instagram and social media accounts too.
Yeah, so we offered them, we're like, look, we'll put you on all these mediums in exchange for, doing the work for us, as in like writing the blog post, letting us put it on our website, or making us a sponsor and organically putting our name into the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this guy's grown from like 200 followers in May or June to like almost 10,000 now.
And he's fully into creating the podcast
Oh,
as
he's
well.
awesome.
Like he's a genius.
He's a genius. Yeah, he's
super cool guy, and he's super
super
we love
motivated.
working with
we
him.
love we meet with him about once a month, and like just over Skype, and we leave that meeting more motivated for like the coming months, because like he gives us ideas that like we wouldn't necessarily think about off the top of our heads, or like even if we're brainstorming. So he's into this stuff like religiously, and for us, we're like, this couldn't go any better because we're loyal to each other. We've helped each other grow mutually, and then we just enjoy working with each other. Like we
share the same vision.
We share the same vision.
So you two have done something that a lot of e-commerce entrepreneurs and a lot of dropshippers do, and that's live this digital nomad life where, any place with a Wi-Fi connection that becomes your office. You've did this tour of Asia. You've went to Hawaii. You're currently on a big swing through Europe.
Yeah.
All the while you've been running your store, growing things. What's this experience been like to you? What's this digital nomad existence like for anybody who thinks that sounds all right?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately that was our biggest motivation into getting into this space, just because we wanted the time freedom, we wanted the location freedom, and we wanted the financial freedom, right? So this I guess job, if you will, or career, it offered us that. So that's what drove us into kind of wanting to get into drop shipping and having a business model that we could run from our laptops and our smartphones, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, just this is the life we've always wanted. I mean, being able to wake up and do whatever you want. Of course, we're working every day still. We also run a marketing agency on the side. So like, we've got clients and responsibilities there, but having these two businesses that are entirely done from the laptop is like, we couldn't ask for anything more, because it allows us the opportunity to continually learn and adapt and find new ways to solve problems. But then from there, now we've added the travel aspect of like living abroad, working abroad, and figuring out ways to tackle problems while we're not in the comfort of our own home. Because ultimately we want to continue traveling, but like, we have to make sure that we can stick up to our responsibilities on one end, but then also enjoy the travels and the life side of it at the same time.
Definitely. I think it's good for giving a new perspective on things as well when you're traveling around and you're working, just because you see things from a different perspective. Whereas if you're kind of in the stagnation of your own home, you're seeing the same kind of thing every day, day in and day out. It gives you just a chance to see things from a different point of view, and that can apply to your business as well.
Have you applied stuff that you've seen abroad to? I mean, have you had new concepts or new seen stuff that you have indeed implemented into your...
Definitely, like just like general aesthetics for websites, or just for stuff that we've seen while we're traveling, like
different types of advertisements.
Yeah, exactly. So we went and we explored a bunch of castles in Europe, and we got to kind of experience that, and just, okay, how can we apply this to our store? How can we utilize this aesthetic, or like this story, or this background?
It's fantasy. It's
perfect.
Yeah. So that was a big thing for us, is like, we got to see some of these like sweet, and it's just been a dream of mine to come over and like see those types of buildings, right? So it's
also good too, just kind of stepping out of our, I guess, echo chamber of me, Corey, and myself. Because when you're in the middle of it and you're working and you're kind of in this routine, it's hard to see the inefficiencies within your routine when you're in the middle of it. So traveling and kind of moving locations and being able to have like a mental reset or taking a step back gives you kind of an outward look into the inefficiencies that you're currently experiencing.
We were working 6.5 days a week before we came on this trip to Europe, partially because we knew we had to get a lot of work done to automate things on the back end, but that was also just kind of like what we had adapted to.
Yeah.
And coming here, we realized quickly like we were working way too much. And I mean, in the beginning, you got to put those hours in and do the 16, 20-hour days and like figure out those problems. But we thought we had a routine that was bulletproof, and it turns out that once we got this outside perspective looking back or taking time away from that routine, we realized like, no, we are being efficient, yeah, and we're working hard, but we could be doing it better.
We could be much more efficient and not burning ourselves out as much, which is, I think, a huge key, where people kind of get this perspective that you need to be working like 20 hours a day and just grinding it out. But at the same time, if you want to be truly proactive and kind of use your foresight correctly into what you can take this business to, you have to have that downtime.
You got to be able to think, and you have to have a brain that's functioning at the most optimal level, right? Like we work with a friend at home who's helping us with our diet and workout regime and trying to like, our sleep schedules. Because at first we were all, gung-ho about working as hard as possible, putting as many hours in, like working at another job before we went and decided to do it full time.
Yeah, we stopped going to the gym. We're just eating unhealthy because we eat out
meal
all the
a day,
time.
Or like, just like stuffing ourselves at one meal a day.
Drinking like 3 to 4 coffees a day, just
and
getting in that.
Yeah, it's doable for sure because it got us through the hardest part in the beginning, but it's not sustainable, right? Like we didn't feel good. We felt like we had a lot of brain fog.
Very lethargic.
And like, your motivation kind of slowly dwindles out from there because you wake up every day and you're just in this cycle of like, okay, I just got 16 more hours to go. Like
there's no end in sight.
Sorry. Yeah. There's one thing about this sort of job versus a 9-to-5 job. I mean, like the 9-to-5 job has a million drawbacks, and I think that's why so many people are interested in dropshipping, because they don't have to work for somebody, they don't have to go to the office. That there's a lot more freedom.
Definitely.
But on the other side of that, like because you don't have Monday to Friday 9 to 5, then maybe Saturday becomes also a work day, or you work till, like you were saying, 16 hours. Like if it's 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the evening,
essentially there's no barriers unless you set them for yourself, because issues can come up at any point in time, or emails are going to be coming in, or you can essentially be working on it 24/7 if you want to, right?
Never done.
It's never ending. So you really have to set those boundaries for yourself and kind of incorporate a healthy regime and lifestyle into it, so you can work as efficiently and as long term as possible, because realistically you can't work like that for a year, 2 years straight. You're just going to burn yourself out, and it's not going to work out.
So what's one thing then, if somebody's scaling up, they've cracked through this 15-hour day, at the beginning routine, and now they want to do something that's more sustainable. What's one thing that they definitely need to do to not head down this burnout road?
I'd say build out systems. Like just go through the processes that you're going through on a day-to-day basis and see what you can automate, right? See what you can kind of reduce in terms of bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and how you can utilize technology to your advantage to kind of make your whole job easier.
Build out those systems, and as applicable it is to your business, do it for your life as well, right? Like we focus on meal prepping because it used to take us like maybe an hour to cook and eat a meal entirely, but if we have meals ready to go in the fridge or the freezer, we don't have to think about that. And then coming up with the proper system for your daily routine, right? Like have things that you get done each and every day. That's part of the system, right? Make sure that you incorporate some sort of physical activity or exercise, because it gets your brain going as well. Like,
improved cognitive function.
Focus on improving your cognitive function. And it all comes back from these systems, right? You know what's going to work for you. Find out what it is that works for you, implement it, and then build off of there.
Yeah, especially utilizing like proper structure in your life, you reduce the amount of decision fatigue as well, right? So we were coming to that point too, where it's like we have so much stuff to do, but we don't know what to do first. So it's just super overwhelming if you're not sure what to attack first, because you just see this mountain of tasks, and it's like, where do I even start, right? So I think for people, if you can kind of segment that out and like visualize it, like we utilize a whiteboard, and we use that all the time, where we write down tasks that need to be done for the day, what is the level of importance and what needs to be done first, and we get those done in order, just so we know what we have to do.
If you're able to cross them off and you have the longer term ideas on the board, well, hey, you freed up time. Now you can actually approach this problem now, as opposed to waiting until it's too late, or you have to react to an issue that it,
versus being proactive.
And this is a literal whiteboard, or
a literal whiteboard
by hand.
Cool. Physically cross it off.
As much as it is online, it is nice to be able to write in a journal or have a whiteboard that you can put things on, and I don't know, crossing something off or erasing it just feels so good.
It's different than moving it to a different part of your Trello board.
Exactly.
You really get to cross it off. One thing I'm curious about, I mean, you guys spend a lot of time together, traveling, working. I mean, you guys are tight. Do you ever get at each other's throats?
Definitely, yeah.
Like-
but I mean, we're both very rational people, so it's not for more than like an hour or two where it's like, I don't know, we're not acting, or we both act in ways where it's like we can rationalize our point of view to the other person so we can kind of understand them.
And then after a little while, they'll agree, or you'll just kind of get over it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
like, we have the same mindset on essentially everything. There's obviously little things where like here and there we should do this or we should do that. But then it's like, okay, you know what? Here's your idea. Here's mine. Let's talk about them and then see which one prevails.
The thing is, yeah, we're both aware of our weaknesses and our strengths, so we both kind of play on that, and we're open to listening and communication with each other, because if you get too kind of hard-headed, it's hard to work with people because you're always going to hit that stagnation point if you can't come to an agreement, right?
A lot of our friends back home are very, very close-minded in terms of, trying to start a business themselves or ourselves, and seeing that happening. But not just that, but in like, politics or in sports or music. And we're like, why? Like, the whole world's out there and you're only committing yourself to this one little pocket. And for us, we want to expand our minds and continue to like grow and find things that are, issues within ourselves, and then we can address them with each other or with the people that we work with. And from there, we just want to continually learn and grow. And so to do that, you have to be as open-minded as possible, and you have to have good communication. Like we said, we're in an echo chamber between ourselves, but at the same time, we can brainstorm like crazy an entire day. And then there's days where it's like, maybe we didn't have such a good day, or we lost money on bad advertising or bad sales. So like, we're obviously moody, but things need to get done. So you got to hold each other accountable.
Right. Yeah, which is huge too. Just having another person to work with that has they share the same vision as you, it ultimately makes it a lot easier because you see that grand vision kind of in your head, and these little inefficiencies or these little issues they're not a problem in the grand scheme of things.
You're not tackling them alone, right? So like, he's got his perspective, I've got mine. More often than not, they're like similar, but sometimes they're entirely different. And then from there, it's like, okay, well, if I was doing it alone, I would go down the rabbit hole of what I thought was right, but it could be completely wrong. And then I'd have to come all the way back and retry another one. Whereas here now we can kind of like brainstorm, put a few ideas together, and then cross off the ones that we think are like kind of stupid or not going to work at all. But
or even just collaborative research is huge because we have two people that we can go into something and say, okay, I went down this kind of line and you went down this line. What did you find out, and what works from that perspective, and what doesn't?
It allows us to split up a lot of the work we do too, right? Like everything he does, I can do, and vice versa, essentially. But we don't necessarily need to do it at the same time, right? Or like have at least an intro into what each other's kind of main responsibilities are. And then from there, it's okay, if you really can't do anything, I can help you out, or he can help me out. But then you're not focused like, okay, I have all this work to do for this, and then I have to focus on this. And it's like, okay, we can split it up. We can get things done throughout the day, and then we can have a think tank kind of afternoon and just chill out and relax, and then focus on the bigger task at hand.
It gives us the ability to be a lot more precise as well with our work, just because we can go down specialization kind of chambers, I guess. No, we can go down specialization factors.
You can specialize?
We can specialize.
Within.
We can specialize. So it gives us the opportunity to do that and kind of have someone else go over your work and kind of give a different perspective as well. So,
And then we learn from each other too, right? Like that's the ultimate, is like now, we're not stuck with just one person running the business, where you're not able to ask someone else for help or to review something or run an idea by them. So I think that's like one of the most beneficial parts of finding a business partner that is on the same page with everything, right? Like our financial literacy, we like to grow and learn that stuff together, but we've been frugal our whole lives trying to save money and invest money. So having that mindset right out of the bat, or right out of the gate, is super important, because you could have a partner that wants to get paid week in and week out from the business, whereas we just want to reinvest and put it all back in and grow it to like the top that we can, because we know we haven't even scratched the surface yet. Like there's so much more work that can be done.
There's so much more money on the table.
It's just a matter of like time and figuring out all these problems ahead of us.
All right, so one thing before I let you go that I like to ask people is something that they know now that they didn't know when they got into e-commerce. So is there anything that for people who are just getting started, any wisdom that you would impart onto them that you've picked up over the year?
Yeah, be ready to sacrifice.
Yeah, sacrifice is definitely needed, especially if you're trying to do this properly.
People that support you,
Yeah.
or think that they support you, you'll kind of come to this divisive line of, okay, who actually is supporting you and is okay not seeing you for multiple months at a time. And who's not, right? Like, who thinks that you guys are trying to ditch them or not be friends with them anymore? It's, we're trying to work to our goals, and you got to realize that there's a point in your life where it comes to, do you want to make other people happy around you, or do you want to be happy yourself? And for us, we want to achieve what we want to achieve. And if you're not able to support that, then it's, there's no beneficial part to having you dragging us down at that time.
Definitely, yeah, and it's the mindset change of making decisions based on what others are kind of wanting of you and what you want for yourself and what you truly kind of want to do, right? So that'll bring a lot of kind of mental and social negativity into your life as well with that sacrifice, right? Because not everyone's going to understand what you're doing, and not everyone's going to understand your regime or like your new lifestyle, right? So ultimately you have to kind of ask yourself, is that what you're willing to do to get to this point, right?
So it's kind of isolating in a way.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, like we had mentioned, we feel like we're living in an echo chamber between each other because, at home there's no one doing what we're doing, or we haven't met them yet. But since being out here in Berlin, we've been able to connect with 2 other people that are in the industry, and you develop relationships with them immediately because they know exactly what you're talking about, and they've all been through the same thing. And that is the one thing that you can do all the business research you want, but until you actually live it and experience it for yourself, nothing can really prepare you for that. And that just adds to, the difficulty of getting the business off the ground is having that social and mental aspect kind of in the background that you're trying to deal with as well.
Wow. It's hard enough.
It's hard enough
while you're trying to solve this puzzle. And you have those
So,
factors thrown in there too.
Then it comes to the point of like, all right, you know what? Well, certain things have happened, you move on with your life, and now it's just full steam ahead with achieving our goals.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just sky's the limit from here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Corey, Rodney, we can leave it there. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, it was fantastic.
All right, David here. Thanks again to Rodney and Corey for joining us, and thanks to you as well for sticking around. If you're looking for more episodes of Start Yours, you can find them wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be releasing more, so be sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the fun stuff that we have coming up. And of course, we'd be thrilled if you took a moment to rate and review the podcast. That is super helpful. Also, Oberlo.com has you covered for blog posts, ebooks, and other goodies on e-commerce and starting a business. And you can find Oberlo on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Finally, if you want to reach us via email, you can do so at podcast@oberlo.com. Again, it's podcast@oberlo.com. Thanks. Talk to you soon.